Hey guys, Argonaut here. Today's video is all about Shin Godzilla, and it's one of the first videos I ever made about roughly a year ago. YouTube kept copyrighting it, and I was originally going to just scrap the whole thing, but I put like maybe 10 hours into making it, and I think it's kind of funny to see just how far I've come since then. I was clearly reading the script all nervously, my editing was everywhere, and I didn't know what I was doing when it came to equalizing the music. But, anyways, enjoy, and thanks for watching. Okay, we all know the king of the Kaiju. I mean, come on, that guy's been around for like 7 years blasting everything with his atomic breath. Except that one that we really don't talk about. And recently, he's been becoming even more popular in America and other countries, thanks in no small part to the MonsterVerse movies. Hell, if you're watching this, chances are you just saw his last Japanese film -1 within the last year, and that became the #1 foreign film from Japan. But what a lot of people, not talking about you hardcore Godzilla fans, don't know about is that he also had another Japanese movie that came out after the 2014 American version, but before 2019's King of the Monsters. Hello everybody, my name is Argonaut, and thanks for tuning into the channel, where we talk about older games, movies, and animes from the past. Now that it's officially October, or rather hopefully it's still October when I upload this video, we're going to make it all about the King of the Monsters. But, disclaimer guys, there will be spoilers about Shin Godzilla and -1 in this video. Also, this isn't exactly going to be a perfect summary of either of the movies. There are tons of other YouTube videos about that. So if you don't want to be spoiled, for any of you, now's your chance to get out. Now, let's jump in and continue this thing. If you didn't get what movie I'm talking about here, I'm talking about 2016's Shin Godzilla and... Wait. 2016? Damn! That was already 8 freaking years ago! I remember watching that movie in theaters like it was yesterday. Yikes. I'm getting so old. But 2016 and written and directed by Hideaki freaking Anno, the same guy that created the freaking Evangelion series, Shin Godzilla starts off with this giant, goofy-looking Muppet appearing in a modern-day Tokyo, and a whole bunch of politicians gathering together to discuss the creature. If you're anything like me, you're going to be waiting to see how Godzilla is going to come wipe this rejected Muppet out after its total rampage. But as the creature continues to shuffle through canals, forcing citizens to evacuate and destroying everything in its path, all the politicians talk about, the creature just seems to be going nowhere. Until finally, the Prime Minister gives an emergency announcement about the creature to the public, in which he decides to say unproven information like, the creature won't be able to come onto land, everything will be alright, only to be immediately disproven when the creature hops itself on the land and proceeds to keep running amok through Japan. After about 2 hours, the politicians all finally decide to utilize the defense force against the Nightmare Fuel Muppet. But before they get there, it turns out Kermit evolves. Now, he's able to stand on his own 2 feet, and he looks a little bit less silly than he did before. I don't know about other people that watched this movie, but it was at this point for me that I actually realized that the Muppet is Godzilla. But anyways, afterwards, the SDF finally arrive. The exchange of information here between everyone is so slow it's almost comical. I mean, the SDF get there and go, this isn't even the monster we heard we're supposed to be fighting, and we see 2 civilians in the area. But then that info gets relayed to the army base, then to the general, then to the Prime Minister, and then the Prime Minister, who doesn't know how many civilians are in the area since this is just a bad game of telephone, says we can't open fire with Japanese citizens in the area, period. Meanwhile, the helicopters are just sitting there in the air in front of Godzilla, doing nothing, until Godzilla starts overheating and bails. In about the 2 hours that Godzilla showed up and wreaked a whole bunch of havoc on the city, and then ultimately, due to the bureaucracy and red tape, nothing was done against him. But, admittedly, after watching the movie a few more times, I also almost can't help but feel a little bit bad for the Prime Minister here. I mean, the poor guy was trying his best for a huge, unprecedented situation, but at the same time, the movie also shows just how many restrictions Japan had on themselves post-World War II, and it's not like there's a manual for giant monster attacks for them to refer to. But anyways, the politicians go out and look at all the damage that the creature left behind, and fun fact, this scene was actually supposed to look like the actual aftermath of a tsunami and earthquake that hit Japan back in 2011, so this specific scene would actually resonate way better with the Japanese audience than it would American ones. But an anti-Godzilla team is formed, and they realize that Godzilla is basically just a walking nuclear reactor, and he's also leaving a path of radiation wherever he goes. Also, a Japanese-American woman sent as an envoy from the US is here to help them find a way to stop Godzilla. With her help, they learn that a man named Garo Maki, an NTI nuclear zoology professor, predicted the appearance of the creature. Although he seemed to have vanished, leaving nothing behind but his abandoned yacht and encoded research notes about Godzilla. They learned from the research that Godzilla was some type of ancient sea creature that got irradiated by feeding on all the dumped nuclear waste in the area. Shortly after, Godzilla reappeared and is now evolved to his fourth form. He finally looks like the type of Godzilla that us as viewers are used to, and he once again begins his march to Tokyo, for some reason. But this time, the SDF are ready. They cleared out all the civilians beforehand, and the Prime Minister gave full permission to use whatever force necessary to stop Godzilla. The SDF uses everything in their power against Godzilla, but to no avail. He just keeps marching forward. A little nice detail that I like here is that when they drop the missiles on his face, you actually see this little shielding appear over Godzilla's eyes. But I guess after the missiles, Godzilla just gets fed up, because he immediately hurls a bridge at them afterwards and just keeps it pushing forward. Meanwhile, back in Tokyo, the politicians know that they don't have much time before Godzilla arrives, so they begun evacuating the city, and they've also begun getting themselves out, with the Prime Minister and his cabinet taking a helicopter, and the rest of the politicians having to take a car, but all of them agreeing to meet in a new location. Meanwhile, America has decided to send bombers to destroy Godzilla. The politicians in the car get caught up in the deadlocked traffic and get out to start directing others to the subways to take shelter. And our main character finally sees Godzilla up close for the first time before going to the subway to take shelter. The US bombers arrive and begin dropping bunker buster bombs on Godzilla, and for once, Godzilla actually gets hurt by them. And now, quick side note, with this Godzilla, you'll notice this if you watch the film enough, but he's actually a pretty tragic creature. I mean, he's being forced to evolve constantly against his will, and it hurts. It's not his fault that he's like this. It's ours. He's being irradiated out of his mind, and when you think about all he's doing is just walking, he's not even really attacking us. He's just constantly being attacked by us. The only times that you ever hear him roar in this movie is when he's crying out in pain. Like, for example, at the beginning of the movie, when he first appears, blood is spilling out of his gills. After he evolves for the third time, he's crying out in pain because his body's overheating. When the US bombs him, he roars in pain, and you see a whole bunch of blood fall. Even the song that plays during the scene is pretty sad if you look up the lyrics. Not that I can play it due to copyright reasons. But after the US bomb Godzilla and injure him, Who Will Know starts playing, and Godzilla hunches over and his mouth almost unhinges and splits into 3 different parts. black fog starts spewing out and just spreads through the city, which then becomes flames spreading through the city, which focuses even more to become a beam of pure radiation, almost like a laser. The bombers turn around to hit him again, then Godzilla stops shooting the beam out of his mouth, only to shoot multiple beams from the fins on his back. The fins not only destroy the bombs in midair, but also the bombers themselves. Now, let me tell you, I've seen both this and Godzilla 2014 in theaters, and while everybody cheered when Godzilla used his atomic breath in the 2014 movie, the theater was deathly quiet when he did it here. After destroying the bombers, Godzilla then proceeds to keep using his atomic breath on the city, destroying various buildings, setting various areas of Tokyo ablaze, and even killing the Prime Minister and his whole cabinet in the process. It leaves with this haunting image of a nightmarish Godzilla walking through a Tokyo that's just covered in flames. Until finally, having depleted all of his energy, he comes to a stop and falls into hibernation in the middle of Tokyo. Okay, what I actually like about this here is that typically in solo Godzilla movies, when he goes on a rampage in Japan, he usually just gets bored or something and then leaves with basically no explanation. At least in this one, it felt like we got a better explanation as to why he stopped his rampage. Moving on to the aftermath, Godzilla is now sleeping in the middle of the city, Tokyo is filled with radiation, a new prime minister was elected, and the UN have come to the conclusion that the monster needs to be nuked, and they've given Japan a time limit until that happens. Which, you can imagine, the Japanese would be really thrilled to hear that their country is going to be nuked. Again. Luckily, the anti-Godzilla team that was formed earlier was able to decipher Dr. Goro's notes with help from Sweden's supercomputers and origami. Nope, not gonna explain that one right now. And with some connections from the American diplomat, they were able to buy a couple of days before the nuke is dropped on them, which gives them enough time to form a new plan. Their plan this time around is to spray coagulant into Godzilla's mouth and essentially freeze him from the inside out. With not much time left, the team gets to work in enacting the plan with everybody working to set the plan in place. On the following morning, the leader of the team, Yaguchi, that's our main character's name by the way, goes to the front lines, so this time there will be no delay in communication like at the beginning of the movie. And he begins the plan, dropping buildings on Godzilla to knock him over and start pouring coagulant into his mouth while he's down. This wakes Godzilla up early and he begins attacking the coagulant trucks. With not much time left, the team gets to work in enacting. The next operation of the plan involves launching a ton of drones at Godzilla, which then gets him to use his atomic breath and dorsal fin lasers. During the midst of this, he gains the ability to focus the energy through his tail, and is able to use it as a more focused beam, eventually causing him to use up all of his stored energy. The team uses bombs to demolish a building near Godzilla, which knocks him over, letting the coagulant trucks pour even more coagulant down his throat. But Godzilla once again recovers and begins walking forward, only for all the coagulant to finally have a full effect on him and freezing him over, turning him into this big statue just stuck in the middle of Tokyo. With only about 2 hours left on the clock before the nukes were launched, the countdown timer is going to forever stay there for if Godzilla ever starts moving again. And as the movie ends, we get a close-up of Godzilla, and a very big close-up of his tail, where we see small, human-sized, Godzilla-like monsters that were being formed. Now, what I like about this movie is that it actually does a great job basically being a remake of the original, while at the same time being a reboot to the franchise. It had a really realistic take to how a modern Japan would actually handle the monster with all the restrictions on them and bureaucratic red tape, while at the same time showing what people can accomplish if they just work together. Not to mention the anti-nuclear message it carries just like the original. But what really sucks though is that we'll never get to see what happens with the nuclear timer, or the human-sized Godzilla creatures, or whatever happens next. Since, despite the movie's success, Toei decided to go another way and reboot the franchise yet again with Godzilla Minus One. And don't get me wrong here, I absolutely love that movie. But I'm just a little bit sad that we'll never get to know Shin's true potential. And I'm sure we all know Godzilla Minus One, that movie where an irradiated, seemingly unstoppable creature attacks Japan up until the people of Japan band together and find a unique way of neutralizing the creature. Well, Shin Godzilla is also really similar. In fact, it's about an irradiated, seemingly unstoppable creature attacking Japan up until the people of Japan band together and find a unique way of neutralizing the creature. You can hear how both movies sound a bit similar plot-wise, but yet, at the box office, Shin Godzilla only made a little under $2 million in its theatrical run, as opposed to Minus One, which made a monster-sized $56 million in the US box office. So, what happened here? Well, it turns out Shin Godzilla only had about a week in theaters as opposed to Minus One, which had much more time, coming in at about 2 months. Why did this happen, you may be wondering? Well, let's just say foreign Godzilla films didn't exactly have the best run in American theaters in their lifetimes. The last foreign Godzilla film to come out in American theaters before Shin was Godzilla 2000, and that was about 16 years prior, which I also saw in theaters. Damn, I'm old. And that movie only grossed about $10 million during its runtime at the box office, when there were hopes for it to reach at least $12 to $15 million. And the last Godzilla movie that graced American theaters before that one was the first American Godzilla movie. And most people don't talk about that one. I mean, it was so bad that the Japanese officially renamed that Godzilla to just Zilla. And man, I have got to talk about that movie on this channel one day. What also probably helped Minus One along was the success of the MonsterVerse movies. I mean, Kong Skull Island, King of the Monsters, and Godzilla vs. Kong all came out in that time and helped develop a Western audience. Not to mention, the hype machine was also already going for Godzilla and Kong, the next movie in the MonsterVerse franchise. Needless to say, this gave Toei enough confidence in this film to give it a full theatrical run, leading Minus One to be loved by many and do so well that it was the first Godzilla film to get an Emmy after 70 years of the Big G stomping around. But what about Shin Godzilla? After its limited theatrical run in the US and its worldwide run, the movie went on to win a ton of awards and receive a ton of positive responses, and its distribution rights were acquired by Funimation, and it's now on Crunchyroll, and I highly recommend that you watch it. Or, if you're a really big Godzilla fan and a believer in physical media, where you actually know that you own your purchases, then I highly recommend just picking up the Blu-ray. I'm putting a link to the Blu-ray in the description box of this video. It's only about $18 at the time of this recording, if you wanted to pick it up. But how did you like my thoughts on Shin Godzilla? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are there any points of the movie that I missed? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video and want to see more, go ahead and click that subscribe button. It really helps this channel out. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching.